This is an exemplar poetry essay at GCSE standard which compares two poems. The essay is a top-level response and may help anyone who is struggling to write a comparative poetry essay. It compares War Photographer by Carol Ann Duffy with Remains by Simon Armitage. The question is, compare how poets present the ways that people are affected by war in War Photographer and in one other poem from Power and Conflict. This is War Photographer by Carol Ann Duffy. And this is Remains by Simon Armitage. If you need support understanding either of these poems, they have been annotated on this channel. Please see some of the links in the description. This poetry essay consists of 6 paragraphs. In War Photographer, the protagonist appears to have become inured and desensitized to the horrors of war. For instance, the alliteration, sibilants, spools of suffering is rhythmically read aloud with ease and almost rolls off the tongue, implying that, perhaps due to experience, this process has become instinctive. Alternatively, he is no longer affected by it, despite there being large quantities, spools, of presumably quite lurid, suffering imagery before him. This sense is compounded by this simile as though he, a priest preparing to intone a mass. This simile signifies that he is acting out of a solemn duty, as a priest would, performing a ritual that may not be pleasant but must be done regardless. Such a sacrifice would be salient to the reader and elicit much gratitude and sympathy, which could have been the objective of Duffy, who is friends with people, McCullin and Griffiths, who specialise in war photography and have struggled with what they have witnessed. In contrast, Remains by Simon Armitage depicts a soldier from the Iraq War who is struggling with excruciating guilt and remorse after taking a looter's life. For example, in Remains, the repetition of probably armed, possibly not, demonstrates how the duty he undertook still haunts him. The guilt he carries is inescapable and impossible to shed. This is different to Duffy's poem, where the duty is being actively and voluntarily undertaken, with the present progressive verb preparing telling the reader this. Again, the regret and remorse felt by Armitage's soldier is apparent in the quote, "The drink and drugs won't flush him out." This indicates that the memory is so stubborn and traumatic that the soldier, stereotypically stoic and resilient men, is suffering so acutely in an emotional sense that he has been forced to turn to vice. Furthermore, drink and drugs generally have the impact of limiting consciousness and numbing reality, implying the soldier would rather be unconscious and intoxicated than awake with his thoughts, again underscoring how traumatic the memories must be. In short, the soldier is no longer in control, which is reflected in the vagarious structure of Remains and contrasts with the ordered structure of War Photographer that suggests Duffy's protagonist still maintains a semblance of control. Moreover, the verb flush connotes a toilet flush, which is essential for cleanliness, hygiene and health. The fact the soldier cannot flush out the thoughts suggests that they are having a toxic, polluting impact on his life, and they are tantamount to the stale, festering excrement. The impact of war is presented through graphic and visceral imagery in both poems. In War Photographer, there is a semantic field of violence which conveys the feeling that although he is in rural England, he will always be haunted by the atrocities he witnessed: pain, explode, ghosts and agonies. Similar gory imagery is used in Remains to much the same effect, with descriptions of entrails, guts, and repetition of the word bloody. Interestingly, in both poems there are references to shadows or stains. In Remains, the blood shadow metaphor implies that the protagonist will always be followed by a gory spectre, reminding him of his actions, never allowing him closure. Similarly, a half-formed ghost hints at an eerie form of supernatural punishment. In addition, the phrase blood-stained echoes the sentiment in Remains that the memories are difficult to erase. Indeed, the noun nightmare suggests the protagonist has been reduced to a young boy, suffering from night terrors as an impact of war. Certainly, Remains and War Photographer are two important poems that explore people being negatively affected by war. If you found this helpful, you may wish to check out some of the links in the description for some other supportive resources, including more exemplar essays.